Hello everyone, it's Gregor from A19 Consulting, and today's topic is Ivanti ITSM Project Frequently Asked Questions by Service Desk Managers. Before I get started, a quick disclaimer: I'm not endorsed by, affiliated with, or sponsored by Ivanti, ServiceNow, Remedy, Info, or Sage. Any use of the software product names or titles, as well as the titles Ivanti Consultant and Ivanti Developer, is descriptive of the fact that I have experience with the above mentioned ITSM and CRM products. I have never been employed by Ivanti. I have been a freelance consultant since 2005 and subcontracted for several Ivanti business partners worldwide. However, nowadays I typically work with clients directly who seek out a freelancer that can deliver results without the massive overhead. A little bit about me: I've been in the IT industry since 1993. As I mentioned, I'm a freelance ITSM consultant, as well as I do ITAM, ESM, CRM, systems integrations, and of course project management, development, consulting, technical and functional, architecture and design, best practices, and latest solutions. I have 100 plus Ivanti Heat ITSM implementations since 1996. Yes, that means I go back to the Heat for DOS days, which was the precursor to Heat for Windows and Ivanti Service Manager. I have this experience worldwide and these implementations worldwide in the UK, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Singapore, Canada, and USA. I have extensive experience with products such as, but not limited to, Ivanti Neurons, Ivanti Service Manager, Saleslogix CRM, Heat ITSM, plus some ServiceNow, Remedy, and Sage CRM experience. My customers include Fortune 500 and Global 500 enterprise clients, as well as Frontrange business partners in Canada, US, and Ivanti business partners in Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand, and private Swiss banks. So, what are the frequently asked questions that I get from service desk managers? First one: do you really need a dedicated Ivanti consultant? The answer is no, you do not. There are some very obscene amounts of rates that I've seen for dedicated Ivanti consultants, going to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you really don't need a dedicated consultant. What you really need is someone that has the experience, that is able to put together a roadmap for you and deliver that roadmap. And you can find a freelancer that has more experience and is able to get it done without the massive overhead that Ivanti consultants bring, because most of the time you're not just dealing with an Ivanti consultant, but you're dealing with junior developers. Sometimes they call themselves senior consultants, but they've got maybe 1, 2, or 5 years experience. And quite frankly, you also don't need a project manager and a customer service manager and so on and so forth. You really need one person that can, with their experience, lead you down the correct way. That's really what a consultant is and does, and you do not need a massive team to do that, and they do not have to be dedicated, working for you 24/7. Next question: how important is Ivanti certification? It's as important as having a driver's license. Sure, you need it, but you're looking for a consultant that has experience, just like you would be looking for a driver that has experience to drive your Formula One car. And someone that just recently got their license is really not someone to get excited about, to be quite honest. You need someone that has the experience to back it up. Sure, certification is great, just like I have my driver's license and I've been re-licensed I don't know how many times now. I've been recertified many times over. Is it important? Not really. The best Ivanti consultants, admins, and developers are the ones that are self-taught Sure, certification is nice, but experience and results matter the most. Is it important for your admin? Well, that really depends. If you have the time and the luxury of the time really and that resource to go on online training for several weeks and see about textbook cases and learn about textbook cases that may never apply to them. So that is something we can discuss in detail for your admin, but I'm leaning towards no, you do not need Ivanti certification to properly administrate and implement Ivanti. It helps, but it's not everything. What time zone are you in? And the next question, I'll combine the two. What is better? What is a better approach, on-site or remote implementation? So way back in the day, before you had Zoom, before you had GoToMeeting, before you had the internet, 100% of implementations were done on-site. I remember traveling in Toronto, all over the US, all over Western Canada, all over Eastern Canada, overseas to South Korea for a couple weeks at a time just to implement the basics. Nowadays, thankfully, we are able to do a lot of the work remotely, and it really pays off to do everything remotely. Don't get me wrong, on-sites are great. I mean, it's great to meet with a client face-to-face, have a coffee, shake hands, get to know the team, put a face to everybody. But you can do that in Zoom meetings. You can do it in Microsoft Teams meetings. And I can definitely fly out to meet you and just spend a day and get to know the team. But honestly, the better approach is a remote implementation. And why not an on-site? Well, my experience dictates that whenever I'm on-site, everybody wants to talk to me. Whether it's ITSM, ITAM, ESM, CRM, or systems integration related, or just something else technically, right? There's just so many distractions, and I'm spending most of my times in meetings and not getting things done. And my clients as well notice that, and they're much happier for me to get on a call weekly and discuss what needs to be done and just get it done. That's what a consultant should be doing, getting things done. And not just after 2 or 3 or 4 meetings, but the first time. Like, a consultant should have the experience to understand what you need, why you need it, and also to give you an insight of whether or not you're going down the right direction, and then based on that, deliver results. So going back to what time zone am I in? Well, the question should really be, what time zones do I support? I support Eastern, US, and Canada, 5 a.m. to 11 a.m., European time, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's really the biggest time zone that I support. But I also work on the other time zones, such as the Australian time zone, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And that is more than plenty of time to work with clients, because if we're spending more than an hour on the phone in a meeting, then we need to determine why that is, because either I'm doing something wrong or you're doing something wrong, because we should be able to chisel up the roadmap and the things that need to be done and discuss them in a very short amount of time, and then get subject matters involved that can help us fill in the details so you and I can make decisions on where to go next with the input of that subject matter expert. That is the best approach. So I work in pretty much all time zones. I don't have a favorite. They're really all good, whether it's US Eastern. I have clients out in Toronto, on the East Coast in the US, in London, in Frankfurt, and wherever in Europe, and then Australia as well. Next question. what is the typical time frame of an Ivanti ITSM project? Well, that can really depend because it depends on, is it ITSM, is it ITAM, is it a systems integration, are we integrating with CRM, ERP, are we doing API, are we doing flat files, are we implementing change, problem management, release management, are we working on your CMDB, on your assets, are we talking about scanning, are we talking about improvements, are we talking about hosted, self-hosted, or online, or hosted, cloud implementation. Where are you at with your implementation? Are you just recently implemented and some things are working great, other things need some work? Maybe you've got some top 3 problems and challenges that you want me to address. What does the big picture look like, right? So there's no cookie cutter. Anyone that tells you there's a cookie cutter solution is leading you down the wrong path. I've seen too many scopes of works that are just very loosely worded, and there's not enough details to make a strategic decision, or it's so detail oriented, you're in the weeds, and you're like, hang on a second, let's look at the bigger picture to see where you really want to go and why you want to go there. So I've seen anywhere from 5, 10, 20, 40 days to 100 days. It really depends on what your project entails. What I can tell you is that my typical time frame is less than half and arguably a third of what it would take the vendor to do, or a business partner. Why is that? Because I don't have the overhead, and luckily I have that experience and skill set. So that leads into what is my approach. Again, I mentioned it is remote. I mentioned that I'm focused on 3 major time zones, and my approach is structured and agile. So yes, there will be a scope of work. There's going to be requirements gathering with subject matter experts. There's going to be a proof of concept. Then I follow the system development life cycle. We've got stage UAT production, and I also do the project management and we work on implementation milestones, right? In which we're going to cover in a second. Now, with that said, is every project again is different. If you just have a quick list of items that you need to be fixed, we might not go through a big 5-day discovery session, right? And it's just like a phone call and like, okay, here's the scope of the work, here's the requirements that you've mentioned, this is what I've heard, is that what you want, yes or no? Here it is in stage, let's review it, okay, we're signing off on that, let's make it available to the end users, let's get our team together. That is a super important part of it, and when the end users sign off, then we can move it to production. And that is the essentials, and that is super important. You do not want to be cutting corners. You might get away with it, but it's like running a red light. Eventually, you're going to run a red light, and someone else is going to run a green light before it goes green, and you're both going to be at high speeds, and it's going to be pretty damn ugly. So you want to be cautious, but not overly cautious. You definitely want to have those 3 environments. I'll help you set those up and keep those in sync as well, which is something else that's super important. And then as far as project management, yes, there are implementation milestones. So if it was a bigger project, this is very formalized, but even smaller projects, there's an element of all of this. To a smaller project, you're just at least I'm a lot quicker at doing it in that sense with smaller projects as well, where I can just go through it and cover all of this in a short amount of time without the overhead of a project manager, junior developers, other consultants involved, the customer service relationship manager, and before you know it, you've got too many chefs in the kitchen, and arguably they're just sous chefs, right? Everyone is good at what they need to do. We need to focus on having the right subject matter experts and the right individuals involved, and we need to kick things off by setting the implementation milestones, and that is something I would do directly with the decision maker, which is typically the service desk manager or the director of IT. Now, we start with a scope of work, requirements gathering, a proof of concept, a functional prototype perhaps, if it's a bigger project and we want to just get a visual on things and have something to discuss. And we sign off on that, we do some system testing, we do a code freeze, we put it into UAT to do that, we got to do some prep. We also got to have some data in there. We have to have test cases, because if we're not testing things properly, that's going to be an issue. And if we're not asking the subject matter experts to test a number of different scenarios they have helped us create, by the way, that's going to be a problem. So then we do our UAT validation, our remediation, so we fix any issues that come up along the way, whether that is something that's on the development side, or maybe something we got wrong in the requirements gathering, or in the, in the review with the subject matter experts. Those things always happen. This is why UAT is really important. It's kind of like birth, right? Yes, it's 9 months, but is it really 9 months? No, it's not that to the date. You have, premature labor, you have all sorts of things that happen in between that can go wrong. You want to make sure they don't go wrong and handle this very delicately so you are able to implement exactly what you need to get to the next level. So then UAT is signed off, and we do go live prep, we go live, we do some post go live remediation, because again, after you go live, well, it's a whole other story. There's going to be some scenarios that were not accounted for, some scenarios that were not a requirement, suddenly they are, right? And then we look at, do we need a version 1.1? Do we need a version 2? What does that look like? So those are the typical implementation milestones. And again, this depends on how big your project is. The next question is, what are your rates? So my rates really depend on the size of the project, the number of days, and I can tell you this without having a look at your requirements, my rates are going to be less than half, and I'm going to deliver about 3 times as much as anyone else in the same role. So why would you want to engage me? Well, you've got less overhead, less status calls, less meetings, less chit chat, and results. In fact, twice the results in half the time at a quarter of the budget. And with my 27 plus years of Ivanti Heat ITSM experience and my 100 plus Ivanti Heat implementations worldwide, I am extremely confident that I can bring your system and processes to the next level. So much so that I offer a no results, no fee, money back guarantee. So if this has resonated with you and you want to maybe just get a second opinion, or you need someone to help you with your Ivanti Heat ITSM system, I offer a free ITSM discovery session, and the purpose of this strategic call is to set the wheels in motion, get to know another, and establish the who, where, what, when, and why of your Ivanti ITSM project needs, with the goal of establishing a roadmap to achieve maximum results and ROI by streamlining your business processes and fine-tuning your ITSM system. So be sure to visit me at www.a19consulting.com. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to speaking to you.